2 years ago, Apple stood on stage and announced Apple Intelligence, powered in part by ChatGPT. Today, that partnership has completely fallen apart. Apple is now suing OpenAI, accusing it of stealing some of its most valuable trade secrets through former Apple employees. If the allegations turn out to be true, this could become one of the biggest legal battles in AI history. What is Apple actually suing OpenAI for? This isn't a patent dispute. It's not about copying a feature. Apple says this is about confidential trade secrets, internal information that was never meant to leave the company. According to the lawsuit, these trade secrets include manufacturing techniques, engineering documents, supplier relationships, product roadmaps, internal testing, and even information about unreleased hardware. Apple alleges that former employees who joined OpenAI improperly took this confidential information with them, and that OpenAI encouraged them to do so in order to speed up its own hardware ambitions. Again, these are allegations that still need to be proven in court. Why this matters right now? The timing is interesting. OpenAI is preparing to unveil its first hardware product after acquiring Jony Ive's startup IO in a deal worth around $6.5 billion. For many people, this partnership came as a surprise. OpenAI has never shipped a consumer hardware product before. While Jony Ive is the designer behind the iconic Apple products like the iPhone, iPad, and the MacBook. But OpenAI has made it clear that it wants to be a serious hardware company, and reports suggest that it has hired hundreds of former Apple employees to make that happen. Hiring talent from competitors isn't wrong. Apple's lawsuit isn't about hiring employees. It's about what those employees allegedly bought with them. One of the most eye-catching allegations involves OpenAI's hiring process. Apple claims that some candidates were asked to bring actual Apple hardware components to interviews for what were described as show-and-tell sessions. According to the lawsuit, one candidate was reportedly surprised by the request and even said, "I don't even know we could take those from the office." Apple argues these interviews weren't simply evaluating engineering talent. They were allegedly designed to gain access to confidential Apple technology. Again, that's Apple's claim. The lawsuit also alleges that OpenAI interviewers knew the internal code names of unreleased Apple products. According to Apple, interviewers asked candidates detailed questions about these confidential projects. Apple argues these questions were presented as technical interviews but were actually intended to gather information about products that were never been announced publicly. Perhaps the biggest accusation is that one former Apple engineer allegedly continued downloading confidential files even after leaving the company. Apple claims a security issue allowed the engineer to retain access to internal systems after his departure. According to the lawsuit, Apple believes those confidential files were later transferred to OpenAI. If proven, this would likely become one of the most significant parts of this entire case. Another major allegation involves Apple suppliers. Apple has spent decades building relationships with manufacturers around the world. Those relationships include years of testing, manufacturing expertise, pricing negotiations, and product knowledge. Apple alleges that OpenAI approached some of these suppliers using confidential Apple information in an effort to accelerate its own hardware development. If true, this goes beyond simply copying product ideas. OpenAI has rejected these claims. Its director of strategic communication said, OpenAI doesn't have an interest in other companies' trade secrets and remain focused on building innovative technology that empowers people everywhere. Notably, OpenAI did not respond point by point to Apple's specific allegations. Ultimately, the facts will be decided in the court. This lawsuit comes at a fascinating moment. Apple has struggled to keep pace with competitors in AI, while OpenAI is rapidly expanding beyond software into hardware. For the first time, Apple may view OpenAI not just a partner but as a direct competitor. At the same time, Apple remains one of the most influential consumer technology companies in the world. Breaking into the market won't be easy even for OpenAI. Now it's up to the courts to decide what actually happened. If Apple's allegations are proven, the consequences could reshape the future of AI hardware. But if they aren't, OpenAI's hardware ambitions will likely to continue at full speed. So what do you think? Is Apple protecting its innovations or trying to stop the competition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, subscribe as we'll be covering a lot of tech here at Visex. And follow us on Instagram for the latest tech updates. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.